Our next reader is a young man that I have been following with much interest. Please welcome to the stage, Fan42.
This is called Shore Leave on Dreenan 4.
The pleasure gardens of Miliarca 5 made it the jewel of the Inner Rim for over 5 centuries. A great alien evil had enslaved the once peaceful planet. There was only one option, Vanguard.
Jesse tells me you're a writer. You gonna let me read it?
Is that a diary? Let me see that.
Saber Zap approached Vanguard. His eyes set on the soldier of fortune's engorged pelvic region. Disgusting.
Wow.
You wrote this?
Neil got caught with porno, and now he has to see a counselor.
Like porno?
I didn't know you wrote.
I didn't mean
I liked it. He told me to get down on all fours. Like a dog.
Thank you, Julia. That is enough.
I read /2.
There's a con in Houston coming up.
Like a Comic-Con?
Yeah, there's a live raid too.
Don't you have to be 18?
You're joking, right?
Don't change for her, dude.
You write sex like a 12-year-old, and I think you know it. Have you ever even had sex?
See, that's why I like you, man. You always make me feel better.
You do know he's straight, right?
You want to be a writer? A real writer?
Whoever wrote that story on your computer, they don't have the first clue about actual human relationships.
When we're away from this little community that we've created for ourselves, you know, we're outsiders and we're weirdos and we're sexual deviants. But not here.
What? I'm not ashamed of myself with you.
Dumbledore, he said to Dumbledore, only the energy of our mutual orgasm combined with unbroken eye contact can close the door to the Nexiverse, like in Ghostbusters.
Give it up one more time for Slash. A totally original, truly surprising, and wonderful film. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Clay, I have to ask where this film started for you, because it feels like, as a person, when I was watching it, it feels like it could start in so many different areas, and then as a writer, it feels like it just sort of took on a life of its own and went in directions that are totally unexpected.
You know, I just wanted to make a modern coming-of-age story. I feel like when you watch coming-of-age movies, of which there are quite a number of them, they typically reflect like the youth of the filmmaker, and you know, because most filmmakers who are working professionally are like around my age or marginally older or younger, it's like they're always like kind of nostalgic and they're about like the 80s or maybe like the 90s, but the internet is kind of, it's always kind of pre-internet. And I wanted to do a movie where the internet is like a character and had like a major place in the movie, like kind of like a, you know, just, and I think you'll see more and more of these in the coming years, obviously, as younger kids become adult filmmakers and start making films about their youth. But so I think we're kind of at the new wave there. But also just about, you know, the ability of the internet to, you know, so you can, the community building aspect of the internet and how if you're a strange kid and like maybe you geographically all the people you're around are not like, you don't see eye to eye in it with, and maybe you're into weird stuff, that you find your people on the internet. And this is about like finding your people, you know?
And also the idea, especially when it comes to the internet, so often sex on the internet is looked down upon or is the villain, especially when it comes to teenagers. And you do a totally original and I think really almost heartwarming thing by making sex kind of this thing that is a gateway for this kid, a good gateway for him to sort of figure out who he is.
Yeah, we like to think we're very sex positive, but also that it's about not, it's not about like heteronormative or like, it's about just kind of like being okay with whatever you are, and also just about not defining yourself. I mean, one of the messages about the film is just like, it's okay when you're young to like have time to figure yourself out, you know, and I think that's like a message that you don't often hear.
So was it kind of a situation where you started with wanting to make a coming-of-age film and then sort of found the internet as a character and then found like fan fiction as a character and then found the sort of sexuality around a coming-of-age film as a character as well?
Partially. I mean, mostly I wanted to be able to speak. I made a couple other movies that had a high school component, but it was always from an older, like I made 2 previous features that had high school teachers as central characters. And I wanted to do like the one last movie about high school before I could move on. I kind of wanted to talk about
next movie about like an old folks home.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Like
Well, I gotta move on to like I don't know, like first year of college or something. I'm gonna work up the ladder. No, but I thought it was important. Like I really wanted to tell a story about like my experience being like a nerdy kid, and being like terrified of people finding out like what I was really into, you know. But at the time, it's like the stuff that I would have been ostracized for if people knew about it. Like being a Star Trek fan, like that's not even a big deal anymore. Like, you know. That's just hipster, or like dude bros love Star Trek, you know? It's like
you had to take it one step further. What if I was into people from Star Trek having sex?
Well, it's like what's left? What's left that's misunderstood? You know, it's like it's kind of like the Alamo of nerddom now. It's like, you know, slash fiction. It's like the last stand. It's like everything else has been co-opted by mainstream media to the point where, like, I mean, I really thought as a lifelong Star Trek nerd that Star Trek would never fall as to like general audiences because it was so like techie dorky and stuff. But like,
and Chris Pine showed up.
But then like J.J. Abrams, Chris Pine, they came in and they skinned the buffalo and they stuck it on Star Wars or whatever, and it's like, you know. But so, you know, there was little left. I'm like, what's left? What do I know about? Because I've known about slash fiction my entire life. Because I was a con kid from the age of 10. I used to go to conventions all the time. My dad would drop me off with like $20 in my pocket and let me go wander. But and you know, that was always a presence at cons. So I was like, what's misunderstood? You know, that fits this bill and that has a sense of community. Because for me, the idea of like finding your community is such a huge thing. And so like, I think sometimes slash fiction it's misunderstood, is often maligned. You know, it's very easy for us as filmmakers, especially those who are comedy filmmakers, to like make like the Adam Sandler version of this movie, where it's like pointing fingers and like being derisive. But that was not my intent, and like I think that's like not interesting to me. It was interesting to me to make a very inclusive movie where you're actually trying to understand why, you know, the characters are, why they choose to pursue these outlets, you know.
Well, what's wonderful is that you're also not above a well-timed joke about bad slash fiction. You know, like there's like we see it in the trailer, which is, you know.
Yeah, there's good and bad in every community, right?
Exactly.
You know, there's like genuinely amazing writing within the slash community, which I discovered not realizing at first. But then there's all, I mean, obviously there's also funny stuff, and we're a comedy, so we kind of have to like, you know, straddle the line a little bit.
It's a cliche question to ask actors like what kind of research they did for their role, you know, and it's usually asked of like, what kind of research did you do to play cop? But there's actual research that you guys could have, you know, done for this. You could have gone to cons, you could have read fiction online. So what was that like for you diving into this community?
Do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, you know, I feel like I really connected with my character, Neil, because he's just very inexperienced when it comes to a lot of things. I mean, at least at the time. And, you know, Hannah and I going to the Comic-Con that we went, because we actually shot at a real Comic-Con at one point, was the first
thing we did.
For me. Yeah, but before I did it, you know, I knew what fan fiction was because I actually had fan fiction written of other characters that I played.
Really?
Yeah.
Which characters?
My character Corey in Teen Wolf has tons of fan fiction, and then a couple video game anime things.
Do you read the fan fiction every now and
then? Well, I have, but I try not to read too much of it.
what is the not the worst, but what is the strangest thing that your character has done in fan fiction that you've read?
Is it dirty?
I may have written it.
Yeah.
You're welcome to say it on this stage. You can say whatever you want.
I mean...
Horribly dirty.
Well, Ricky, last time I was here, I mentioned gonorrhea within the first 5 minutes.
So there you go.
I don't know how that happened.
I don't either. I don't remember.
I will say
that
this,
happened.
in my own research for slash fiction, there seems to be an interesting truism that there's an inverse proportion between how innocent the source material is and how depraved the sexual acts are. So, like, I found some, like, Thomas the Train Engine stuff that's just, like, how does it even work? I mean, like, before I read it, I didn't think that trains had genitalia. But apparently I was wrong.
Yeah, we talk about that in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. There is a Thomas the Train Engine reference in the movie. about that.
Hannah, but what about you? Did you? And I'm going to come back to you on the worst thing that your Teen Wolf character did. So you better keep thinking.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay. What about you? Did you do some heavy research into slash fiction?
I didn't do heavy research into slash fiction, no, because I just viewed my character as a writer. And so I just tried to play her honestly and have all the same ambitions and drives and passion that she did. And I just loved how opinionated she is, because it's not very often that you see a really opinionated 16-year-old girl character. I mean, she believes that all women are bisexual, all of them. And, she's very convinced of that. She thinks she's always right. And throughout the movie, it's kind of her journey of discovering that she doesn't know everything and that you can't put people in a box. So we were really just focusing on the scene work, and we had like a week of rehearsal before we started. And we also all got together and watched Welcome to the Dollhouse, which was a big inspiration.
Awesome.
Yeah, that movie's amazing. So that was a big inspiration for this. And just having lots of discussions.
How was Welcome to the Dollhouse a big inspiration for you on this movie? It's a much more cutting film, I would say, than this is a much warmer depiction of.
We're like Todd Solondz now. We're like the milder, gentler Todd Solondz. Now, Todd Solondz is like my cinematic god. I think tonally he's an inspiration for taking. He's someone who understands very well that life, the ebbs and flows of life, and the ebbs and flows of like cinematic life are very different. So his movies reflect like something can be really funny one second and super tragic the next second, and that's always been something that I thought was very like those are the type of movies I want to make. And this is probably my gentlest movie. I think my previous feature Wuss is a little bit more in line with that, but a lot of like the gentleness just came out of and just the sweetness and it's just how endearing and how well these two embodied their characters.
Yeah, I was going to ask to start with Welcome to the Dollhouse. Were you surprised by where you ended up going while shooting the film? Did you find a much more gentler tone while you were shooting that you weren't expecting?
Well, I will say that I actually do think that Welcome to the Dollhouse is actually pretty sincere and sweet,
Agree.
but like in a way that you have to like kind of have an off kind of sensibility to recognize, I think. But
sincerely unsentimental.
I feel like when you have great casts who really invest themselves in the characters, they are going to take it. Anything like both Michael and Hannah, if there was anything even remotely in the script that could be mined, they would mine it. So any hints of any characterization, anything that they could take to the next level, they always did. So it definitely grew as a document. Like it grew as the reason I make movies and not like write terrible novels,
fan fiction,
is because I want the collaboration. That's important to me. Like I'm not the type of artist. I'm not good enough that I can make art in a vacuum. I require good collaborators to make my stuff not, bad.
Well, to me, there's a big similarity with Welcome to the Dollhouse, and this was something that we talked about a lot, which was these characters in Slash are not the type of characters that usually get their own movies. And same with Welcome to the Dollhouse. I mean, that is not a common leading lady that you see in that film, and it's pretty cool that she gets her own story, and it's told with such detail and specificity. And that's how I feel our movie is. And I think Clay did an amazing job of writing really unique characters that felt honest still.
I think another thing that you do, not to even maintain a comparison to Welcome to the Dollhouse at all, but your characters are surrounded by sort of, for the most part, thoughtful, caring people who care about their well-being and how they grow up. And Welcome to the Dollhouse is much more about how the outsider is maintained as an outsider and put down even by those who would say that they love that person.
Yeah, and there are a couple of interesting things too. That one thing that I thought was really important that we took from kind of like to some degree that took the nod from Todd Solondz is this idea of like you see movies where like because like Michael plays Neil, who's like kind of a set upon like nerdy kid, and if this is like a mainstream Hollywood movie, like he would be being picked on by like the star football player. Yeah. But in reality, as a nerdy kid, I can tell you first-hand experience. When you are kind of being picked on in school, it's not like the high school football player does not know that you exist. You get picked on by
a comfortable zone with their own status.
Well, yeah,
that if they notice you being picked on, they might step in and do something. Yeah. It's usually the ones that are of the lower rung in terms of the hierarchy of high school who are looking for someone below them to shit on.
It's like half a strata above you is where they find. So like in the movie, like one of the opening scenes is like Neil being abused by like these nerdy little theater kids who would also then like they're barely above him in the pecking order. But like that to me rings more true based on my own experience and based on the experience of all my friends.
Well, also, I love that you didn't give Neil some big coming out speech at the end of the movie that's all emotional. You know, we see that so often, but in real life, you know, it's not that well timed, and it's not like the climax of the movie moment, and not everyone has to come out, and everyone can do it their own way. So I like that you didn't fall into like that cliche trap.
Well, he doesn't have a coming of age experience that's over at the end of the movie, which is
Right.
which is almost radical for a coming of age movie.
I actually, I think, like, when we were shooting those ending scenes, I asked Clay, so is my character, you know, and he's just like, I don't know.
See that? Okay, I'm glad this is coming up because I almost was going to ask you guys in the green room because I was worried that I had missed something. I was like, so wait, did he come out? And I like happened to be like missed that or something, but no.
I mean, I thought that was intentional.
That was very no. That was
very intentional.
I was pretty sure that it was intentional, but then I was also sort of like insecure. You know, I'm watching
that
three
was
movies a
like
day right now.
as I am a very kind of go where the wind takes me kind of like filmmaker with my collaborators. Like the one like line in the sand, the hill I would die on is this notion of not defining Neil, because that like I wanted to make a coming of age movie for questioning teens, for kids who don't have this type of movie. Like I wanted to make a movie for these kids who do not have it. There's never been a movie made for questioning teens who don't know where they fall. And let's just say this, like, and not to be too pretentious about it, hopefully not to be pretentious about
go
it,
for
but
it.
like, let's just say I happen to make a connection with someone who's in that position. And the second I put Neil in a box at the end of the movie, if I put him in a box, I've just taken their movie away from them. I've just robbed that I just ruined that connection.
Well, it goes back to what I said. It's a sort of it's a radical coming of age movie in the sense that his coming of age is not over at the end of the movie. Most teen movies, it feels like their experience is done and they're going to live happy lives as adults for the rest of their lives.
Well, it also humanizes like internet perverts, which I don't think has ever been done in a movie. Like Michael Ian Black plays like, you know, this guy that you think would be just like a creepy guy hitting on a young boy, but you really get his backstory and his life for why he is like that, and he's just lost like everyone else. And I don't view him as a villain in it at all, and I think that's pretty rare too.
Yeah, absolutely. He represents a much more blurry line when it comes to sexuality. When you were first pitching the movie around, Clay, and trying to get it made, did you ever have people respond in a way that was kind of like, you need to be more clear about this person's intention, or is this guy the villain? Because so often, I think a lot of people who aren't looking for the kind of movie that you're making and that I like to watch, which is, you know, sometimes a lot of people are kind of would ask for more clarity in that regard, or ask for someone to be more of a villain.
You know, I think it's always, I have amazing producers, and it's always been internal speeches where like we always like address, like everybody has to play devil's advocate. Like when you're working with good people, it's like we want to make sure that there's no, like we can never be taken off guard. There's no X factor. There's no unknown. So at multiple occasions in preparation throughout production, we would have, you know, times where we evaluated whether or not we were being oblique for the sake of being oblique, or if we're being, you know, clear. And I think these are very healthy conversations, but the good thing is that we're all from day one on the same page. We're all pushing, even when we would fight, have creative battles, it was all in battles, it's a very strong word, creative slap parties. Well, slap parties that we had, that sounds boring. Whenever we'd have our creative differences or whatever, we were all pushing in the same direction. So like, but yeah, I think it's important to have those conversations. And it was very early on, it was very important to us. Like we were like, again, the thing about Neil's sexuality, we're all on the same page about, and about the turn that happens with some of the other characters when we're referring to them, Dennis, who's Michael Ian Black, and it's like probably the closest thing that there is to a spoiler in the movie, so I probably don't want to go too deep into it, but like, you think his character is going to be one thing, and it's kind of scary because you think it's about to go to some potentially really dark places, and then you get a twist, and you know it's.
You get a human twist though. You don't get like just a narrative contrivance twist.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
not M. Night Shyamalan or whatever.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty optimistic view of the world if you think about it.
M. Night Shyamalan's or this movie?
Oh no, this movie.
Well, I mean, I think it's just really nice that that none of the characters are in a box. I think that's what makes it so relatable to so many different people. I mean, I was really surprised at various Q&As at various festival screenings to have people come up to me and just be like, you know, this movie really related to me, and I went through something similar. I'm going through something similar, and I mean, yeah, it's just.
Have you taken it to like a con audience or a slash fiction audience and seen how they respond to it yet?
We've had people come up. I've had people in many cities come up that were like, I drove 60 miles because I am in fandom and I wanted to see what you were doing with it. And I've occasionally had people, because it is, you know, it's scary when you're in a subculture that's oftentimes made fun of, that you get, I can see why it's very easy to kind of tense up when somebody who's not directly in the community makes a movie about your community, and like, so I know there is some trepidation. So if I had people come up to me and it was very pleasantly and be like, I came here fully expecting to like wince, but you represented me properly, and I'm like, you know, I feel like I've had such great interactions after people have seen the movie, you know, but I you know, when you're talking about any subculture that people were very, I don't want to use the word precious, but I'm trying to think, I can't think of a better word, but they're very protective. That's a better word, protective of.
I was a little worried about accurately representing someone like in a small community, like writing fan fiction, but then I realized it's okay that my character's fan fiction might not always be very good.
I mean, I think we were really conscious of not wanting to offend anyone, not wanting to make fun of anyone, and just, you know, our characters are definitely not slamming this community. I mean, we're a part of it. So I also think that there's a lot of really well-written fan fiction, too, and we dive into that as well. I think a lot of these writers are really good writers and probably don't get enough credit for it.
Speaking of well-written fan fiction, have you come up with the worst thing that happened to your Teen Wolf character in fan fiction?
I mean,
come back to it again. I'm just letting you know that. I'm warning you. I'm gonna come back to it.
Just imagine a story of a teenage boy in any kind of sexual situation you can put him in, and it's been written about me.
Wolves.
So wolves and you know. Well, actually, okay, I have one. My character on Teen Wolf, his power is basically, he's like a chameleon. He can blend in, he can turn invisible. And so let's just say there have been some stories of my character surprising his boyfriend.
Because
there you go.
Because he's invisible, so it's like, there
hello.
you are. Right. Got ya.
Oh.
Wow.
Hannah, last time you were here, your hair was blonde.
Yes.
What's up?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed because my hair matches the poster. Whoops. I don't know.
That wasn't part of the marketing plan? Oh.
No. I just, I had dyed my hair blonde for a movie, and it's now over, so I figured let's do something fun with it, and we're promoting a Comic-Con movie, so why not?
We paid you ones of dollars to do your hair that way.
Yeah. You bought the Manic Panic. That's about it.
Let's open up to the audience for questions. Who has questions out there? Right here, you have a question. You do it now.
Yes, I do. Hey. Do you feel like now with a lot of Comic-Cons and geek culture, like it's become more common or more accepted because of the inclusion of women and maybe cosplay?
Yeah, I think in general, fandom has been embraced in a way that it's never been embraced before, and just like, I guess what you would, if you know, for lack of a better term, nerd culture. It's weird because, you know, it's kind of like there's a lot of like push-pull because there's a lot of inclusion, but there's also a lot of weird division within the communities too. Like even within the Slash community, like there are massive group fights over like, so Supernatural, the TV show, is like currently like one of the, I think it's like the most slashed, like
it's been running for like 12 seasons,
and they like troll their own fans. Like they're aware that their
episode.
fans are into it, so they like troll their own fans by being like, "Oh, look, this may happen in this episode." They even did an episode about a Slash convention, but yeah, it's weird. Like they have like huge like there are teams like you know like Team Edward or team like you know from Twilight, but they're like really like kind of militant about it. And I've seen some insane stuff. I've seen some nutty stuff, but like There is even like, not to go too deep into it, but there is a card game called Slash like Romance Without Borders, and it's like a fun Slash card game where you get to pair up characters. We had done a cross promotional with them at one point, but there's an interesting thing where they had written you get these character cards, and one of the character cards is referring to a minor character on Supernatural, and they called him like whiny was an adjective, and they just got like attacked. Because they used that adjective. It was like they just got like essentially just taken down because of that. So it's like people, they're very passionate, and there's like a lot of passion divisions within the community. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's like, it's growing pains. Everything is growing pains. Like from I mean, just in my lifetime, like again, it's funny to think now that like Star Trek was like something I would have been mortified in high school if people knew I liked. I would have it would have destroyed me if people found out.
Do you guys have things from high school that you would have been mortified if people found out you were into it?
I've been homeschooled my whole life, so.
What if your parents found out?
Yeah. Oh. I don't know.
I was really into World of Warcraft in high school. I mean, I would try to go home early if I could to just go play World of Warcraft.
I actually would watch a lot of Gossip Girl, and I feel like I'd be embarrassed if people knew that back then because I wanted to seem very sophisticated and artsy.
Sure, I had one of those.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. Next question.
Hi. I was wondering what advice you have for misunderstood teens. Like, how should they open up to their friends and stuff that they think they might get made fun of and stuff like that?
I love your ears.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm the wrong person to answer this, but like I feel like to me it's like, the internet's so great because you can find friends that are like-minded, and I think that any friend that would judge you for your interests is not a friend. Like that's just my feeling about it. But like I'm also an old man, so like these kids should probably answer your question for you.
I mean, I would say that's true. If they're your friend, they're not going to judge you, and I think. If you find someone that you're comfortable enough to be honest with about yourself and they still love you, then you have a true friend. And if they don't, you don't need to be around them anyway. And I mean, the whole theme of this movie is you don't need a label. There's no rush to fit in anywhere. So, yeah.
Well, also, even if you're not finding people that understand you now, it's not permanent. Things are going to keep changing, and you will find your people and you will find your friends.
Yeah, just know that I think there's an inverse proportion between how cool you are in high school and how successful you are in life. That I feel like the more ostracized you are at this point, it's going to pay off dividends because all the good people, all the smart people.
Yeah, you're going to be Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, all the smart kids, everyone that I love in my life, and everybody who's just smart, people I look up to and do great stuff, they're misunderstood when they were young, and I feel like if you fit in a little too well when you're young, you're probably peaking early. So
if you're the prom queen, you've got some problems.
Yeah, I was absolutely an outsider in high school. I sat. I remember being so worried about which table I was going to sit at for lunch.
That's a huge reason I didn't go to school because I don't want to deal with any of that.
Your parents pick on you while you were homeschooled just to sort of give you a taste of what being picked on in high school.
No, they're like, we love you so much. They're too supportive.
I once sent a letter to Roger Ebert when I was in high school because I didn't think other people liked movies as much as me, and I thought it was kind of weird that they didn't. And Roger Ebert was like, you're going to go to college, you're going to meet other nerds, don't worry about it.
It's about the geography, right? That's the whole thing. It's just when you're young and you don't have wheels and you have no transportation, you're basically bound, you're shackled to wherever you live. Your friends are your neighbors, and it's just a luck of the draw whether or not those people are going to share your interests. But as you get older and you become more, I guess, global, I suppose, you will absolutely find people that match you, and you just have to know it's always you're gonna have that in your future.
I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. Hey guys, congrats on this. It's awesome. This is for Clay. So kind of toward the beginning of the movie, I remember when they were by the cinema and the movie posters were up, and you were kind of critiquing the posters in a way as if it was your work, from a very possessive place. And I want to know how you approach that aspect of fan culture.
It's an interesting thing because so fan fiction in general is kind of predicated on a certain degree of repurposing their work and transforming it. It's like I can see both sides of it because I'm kind of like on a slightly objective level, so I'm not in too deep. But it's like I appreciate both sides of the coin because like on one side you have the political argument behind fandom, which is like we are taking works of fiction which are oftentimes don't have high representation for anything other than like cisgendered like white men, and we're like basically recontextualizing it for a much broader base. But also, of course, on the other hand, you have the original intent and authors, and you have people that like this is my work, and I don't necessarily want it tampered with. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there. I sympathize with both aspects of that, both sides of that, and
We were just talking about this because I'm on a TV show called Dirk Gently, and Clay is like a big Douglas Adams fan.
Yeah.
And it's it's hard to watch something that you're a huge fan of be adapted by someone else and just be okay with it because it does feel personal when you're a fan at that level.
You attack her show?
I attacked her show. No, I actually really like the show.
No, he
I
didn't.
do. I actually legitimately like the show, and I think obviously Hannah's amazing in it. No, but it is like in a weird degree, you could almost since Douglas Adams, who wrote the book, is no longer with us and couldn't approve that stuff. I mean, to some degree, you could make the argument that the Dirk Gently TV show is some like advanced form of fan fiction, where if the only thing that separates fan fiction from professional work is somebody gets paid a paycheck to do it, that's where it gets questionable. And there's a lot of arguments within fandom. It's like what separates, a fan from professional, and it's typically what it comes down to. At the end of the day, it's a paycheck,
But also, if you don't like something, you don't have to watch it. And I think a lot of people get really upset. It's like, don't watch it.
I agree. No, I agree. I mean, I feel like there's so much signal to noise out there. There's so much out there.
Clickbait.
And it's just like it's so easy now. It's not like there's like 2 channels on the TV set where if you don't like Howdy Doody, you're trapped.
Would you consider the new Abrams produced, and directed, and then just produced Star Trek's a form of fan fiction?
I would call it fiction, but I have a hard time calling it fan fiction because I'm going to say controversial things about Star Trek now. I don't think that it's really I don't think those represent fans because I don't think anyone who's a true fan of Star Trek would take that away from it and make that into a movie. I feel like, I don't want to say cash grab, but I will say it's cash grab. I think that those movies don't represent Star Trek in any way, shape, or form. They don't represent Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future, and they don't represent science on the forefront. They represent like space battles, which is like Star Wars. I mean, just like let's go watch. Just leave it to Star Wars. You don't have to turn Star Trek into Star Wars. Sorry, I'm gonna get on my soapbox.
That was absolutely wonderful, guys. Slash comes out December 9th, which I think is that tomorrow.
We actually open today. We're tonight. We're actually going to Brooklyn tonight, guys. You should.
Yeah.
Woo! There are some tickets I think still left.
It is such a wonderful movie. Congratulations. Thank you so much for being here.
Can I say we're on iTunes?
Thanks.
What?
Can I say we're on iTunes?
Yeah, of course.
We are available right now on iTunes.
And we are not a horror movie.
And we are not a horror film. But yeah, you guys should come.
That gets you to buy it on iTunes. Sure, it's a horror.
It's really scary.
We're playing tonight. We're going from here to our screening. You guys should come.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Guys.